Bryan, what do you think was achieved by the Mabo native title court case?
Well, the decision was handed down in June of 1992. Up until that time, Australian common law had proceeded on the faulty assumption of terra nullius. That is, when the British colonised Australia in 1788, as a matter of law, no one was here. Therefore, there was no need to deal by way of treaties with anybody in regard to use of land, and British law and British sovereignty extended across the entire nation at the drop of a hat. That, of course, was very unfair, not to mention illegal. The common law of Australia, therefore, did not recognise Indigenous rights to land until the Mabo decision. There was huge political controversy during the 1970s and early 1980s regarding the introduction of a legislative solution. You might remember that the Whitlam government in 1975 introduced land rights legislation to Northern Territory. That of course failed when the Whitlam government was dismissed, but the Fraser government, to its credit, introduced those laws in the Northern Territory in 1976. There were also some legislation in South Australia introduced by the Dunstan government in 1966. Apart from those two legislative solutions, Australian common law had failed, and the parliaments had failed to recognise Indigenous rights to country. That might be compared to the United States of America, where the Mabo decision was decided in 1823, in New Zealand in 1847, in Canada in 1973. So when the Mabo decision came down, it for the first time established as a principle of Australian common law that Indigenous people had enforceable property rights, subject to proof, based not on Crown grants, but on their own customs and traditions. That's the first thing. The second thing that was achieved by Mabo is that it forced the Keating government to introduce a legislative solution so that we wouldn't repeat 10 years of Mabo litigation around the whole nation. The solution, after significant consultation with Aboriginal groups in Canberra, was the Native Title Act, which came into force on the 1st of January 1994. Since then, we've had about 200 native title claims, and over 50% of the nation is now the subject of native title determinations. These deliver rights to traditional owners, including the right to negotiate about people wanting to enter into this country, and these might also provide an obvious foundation for domestic treaties or domestic agreements in Australia, whereby traditional owner groups might not only just have agreements about how to use their land, but also agreements with state and federal governments about self-government across a range of topics such as health, education, housing and policing. So that is the second achievement triggered by the Mabo decision.
What do you think will be achieved if the voice referendum yes vote gets up?
I think it will achieve a significant development in the resolution of both historical wrongs and current denial of justice to Indigenous people. It is a very simple proposition. It asks that there be entrenched in the Constitution the ability of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders to advise government and the executive. That's all. Simply advise. The government and the Parliament can reject that advice if it so wishes, and alternatively it can accept it and implement policies. It provides a framework and a focused body to funnel submissions to the Parliament and to the executive, and thus have a firm foundation entrenched in the Constitution to enable Aboriginal voices from around the country to be heard. The problem at the moment is that there have been several national Indigenous advisory bodies since ATSIC was introduced. ATSIC was demolished by the Howard government in 2005. That was repeated time and time again through to current times. That is a huge waste of effort, of acquired expertise, of continuity of policy, and a waste of taxpayers' money. If the Yes voice gets up, those past practices will be not applicable, because it will be a body with permanence and with the ability to plan ahead, irrespective of what governments are in power.
Thank you. Which they never use anyway, all these people.